Hello, mathletes. Well, we are here today, right now, to correct page 104 from your book. So this is your lesson 4-2 book assignment. So if you don't have your book open to page 104, why don't you stop the video and then go ahead and find your book. This assignment should already be done from yesterday. So grab your book and then we're going to go ahead and correct this. All right, so we need to find the slope. So there's a couple different ways, remember, you can find the slope. And one is to use your slope formula, in which case we're going to take the y values. So remember how a lot of times I like for you to circle your y values. So we're going to do 1 minus a -3 and 1 minus a -3. So I started with the number on the top. So we're going to do 0 minus 2. Well, 1 minus a -3, remember this says the opposite of a negative, so what we're really doing is 1 plus 3. So we get a 4 on top, and we're going to divide by a -2. So 4 divided by a -2 is a -2. And then the y-intercept is where is this line crossing the y-axis? So if we look, it's going to be crossing right here at that point, and that y-intercept is a 1. All right, another thing we could have done is we could have counted slope by doing the ratio rise over run. So we could count 1, 2, 3, 4, so it went up 4. And then over 2, and we went left, so it's a -2, and 4 divided by -2 is -2. So you can do your slope either way. All right, so I am going to count my slopes, but ooh, I gotta be careful here because look how they're counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're counting by ones in the direction of x, but look at y. It goes from 0 to nothing to 10. So in between, that means that they are counting by 5s. So when I count up one space, that's really 5, 10, 15. So my rise is 15, and then my run is 1, 2, 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my slope is going to be 5 here. Then the y-intercept is where is this thing crossing the y-axis? And that is at a -15. Now, if you just use your ordered pairs, you wouldn't maybe get caught with that of just going up 5 over 3. You would actually use your points. So you'd be 0 minus a -15 and 3 minus 0. So we'd be at 15 divided by 3, but you didn't have to worry about counting, oh, 5, 10, 15. It just worked out for you. All right, number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, they're counting by ones here. So it looks like this is going through an exact point right there at 4, 4, and right there. So I might have missed some in between, but that's okay. So we're going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my rise is 6 and my run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go over 4. And now when I divide by 2, I get 3 over 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. Yep, it looks like I missed a point right there. That's okay. We still got the same answer. And where is this thing crossing the y-axis? Well, it's crossing the axis right here at a -2. All right, number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, this is counting by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12. So I can do that y-intercept right away. It's crossing at that y-axis. And if I count, it looks like it's going here and here and here. So when I go up 1, I'm not really going up 1. I'm really going up 3. But then when I go over, it's going to be a -1 because I'm going to the left. So 3 divided by -1 is a -3. All right, number 5, finding the slope and the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is actually going to be fairly easy for both 5 and 6 because remember, for every single y-intercept, that x value is going to be 0. So if you have 0 in here, we know that y-intercept is 1. And looking at number 6, do you see how that x value is 0? Well, then this y-intercept is going to be 140. So it's really nice when that chart already has that x value at 0, because then we know the y-intercept is going to be that other number. All right, so to find slope, we can take two ordered pairs, and I'm just going to use these first two right here. And I'm going to do 7 minus 1, 7 minus 1, and 2 minus 0. So 7 minus 1 is 6, 2 minus 0 is 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my slope ends up being 3. Number 6, again, I'm just going to use these first two ordered pairs because my numbers are a little bit smaller. So I'm going to start with 140 minus 120. Remember, I always put y on top. And then 0 minus 5. So 140 minus 120 is 20, and 0 minus 5 is negative 5. So 20 divided by negative 5 is a negative 4. So my slope here is a negative 4. Number 7, how can you determine the slope and the y-intercept from a graph? Well, I'm going to find slope from a graph by counting rise over run. And then when I'm going to find my y-intercept from a graph, I look where line crosses the y-axis. Look where line crosses y-axis. And then that's going to be my number. So that's what I would do from a graph. Number 8. All right, some carpet cleaning costs are shown in the table. The relationship is linear. Find and interpret the rate of change and the initial value. So rate of change is really asking us for slope, and the initial value is really asking us to find the y-intercept. So let's see here what they have here. So for that y-intercept, remember I like for that value to be here at 0. So 4, 3, 2, 1, I can very easily get to 0. So 125 to 175, they are adding 50 every time. So if I subtract 50 from here, I'm going to get 75. So it looks like my y-intercept is going to be at 75. Now, what is my slope going to be? So I can grab any two ordered pairs that I want. So I can just use these N2 if I want. And remember, I'm going to do change in y on top. So 275 minus 225. And if I did 275 first, I have to do 4 minus 3. So it looks like I have 50 over 1. So it looks my slope is going to be 50. It's changing. It's $50 for one room cleaned. Okay, so that would be the interpretation. $50 for every room, for every one room to be cleaned. All right, number 9. Oh, I've got some data or something going on in here that's messing up my video. So we can use this chart over here. So find the cost to park for a day. All right, so this is for 1 hour. And so what happens is when you rent something, the cost is $17. But we have to go in here and we're going to find what the parking would be. So 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then what is the pattern that we have going over here? 17 to 29. So to find this pattern, what I'm going to do is take 29 and subtract 17. So 29 minus 17, and I get 12. So what's happening is I'm adding 12 every time. So if I take 17 and subtract 12, then I will have the cost up here as 5. Now what that means is I'm not renting a paddle boat at all. All I'm doing is going to the park. And when I go to the park, I still have to pay just to get in the park, but maybe I don't rent a paddle boat. So sometimes I might rent a paddle boat and sometimes I not. So if I just go to the park and walk around, do the trails, the parking is going to cost me $5. So parking will cost $5. That is your initial value. Now, what did we find that this change was? Well, this change that's happening right here, change in Y is $12 over the change in X. And what are these numbers changing by? 1. So 12 divided by 1 is going to be $12 per hour. All right, our last question here is number 10. So Raymond's parents will pay for him to take sailboat lessons. He can take either half-hour group lessons or half-hour private lessons. And they're telling us that this relationship is linear. So part A wants us to find the rate of change, which is the slope, wants us to find the rate of change, which is your slope, and the initial value, which is your Y-intercept. Okay, and we're doing group lessons in this particular one. So I'm just going to look at those first two pieces of data. So if I want to keep this going, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then what's this pattern? So remember, I'm going to take 85 minus 55, and I get 30. So now I'm going to take 55 and subtract 30 to see what this number is going to be over here, and I would get 25. So what we have here is this initial value for group lessons is you have to pay $25 just to sign up for sailboard lessons. So the initial value is $25 just to sign up. Then what they do is they charge you per hour. So what are they charging per hour? Well, remember, we're going to do the change in Y over the change in X. So you can take your two ordered pairs and subtract them. Or you can just say, what are my Y's changing by? 30. And what are the X's changing by? 1. So this change is $30 per hour. So this is $30 per hour. So group lessons, they're going to charge you $30 per hour. All right, I'm going to jump to blue now and do private lessons. If you had to guess, are private lessons going to be more or less? Usually private lessons are a little bit more. So 4, 3, 2, 1, I still am going to get 0 here, so now I'm going to keep this pattern going. So 125 minus 75, and now what do we end up with? What's 125 minus 75? And this ends up being 50. So this change here is going to be 50, so let's take 75 and subtract 50, and we end up at 25. Oh, look at that. They both end up at 25. So the initial value for a private lesson is $25. So it doesn't matter if you're signing up for sailboard lessons as a private or a group, your initial value is still $125. But now let's see what that rate of change is going to be. And what do we find that rate of change is going to be? Well, this is changing by $50. So this is going to be $50 per hour for the private lessons. Now the group lessons were only $25, and then the group lessons were $50. So compare and contrast the rates of change in initial values. So what happened with the initial values? Initial values are the same. So your initial values, whether you did group lessons or private lessons, are the same. But what happened is your group lesson is cheaper, isn't it? Group lesson is cheaper because that group lesson is only $30 per hour at $30 per hour, and privates are $50 per hour. All right, I hope this explanation helped and gave you a good review of lesson 4-2.